in New Zealand, for instance, micro-credentials are reviewed every 1 to 3 years. For currency, it might still exist in 10 years' time, but there'll probably be very big differences in either the delivery, the skill sets, assessments, as things kind of change.
Hello and welcome to the Test Community Network. My name's Tim Bennett. I hope you're all safe and well. That's our guest for this week, Stuart Martin. They're just talking about micro-credentials, giving you a little bit of an insight there into what's to come later on in this episode. So first up, though, just a reminder, the It Depends podcast, a fantastic podcast that you can listen to anywhere on the go if you're interested in psychometrics or want to learn more about psychometrics. So here's me chatting with Amanda about test blueprints and their new episode that's out this week. Are they typically shared, though? Would an organization?
They should be.
Share? But
they should be. Best practices, yes. So 17024 ANAB requires. Actually, jury's still out on that. So they should share a content outline, right? What are the things covered by the test? I argue that they should also share the blueprint. So I want to know how much of the test is based on psychometrics versus algebra versus linear statistics, right? So best practice is to release it at least at a high level, at least at the domain level. 30% is this, 20% is this, 50% is this. In my opinion, it's you want to help your candidates or help your students prepare to take the test, unless you're trying to test something like, I don't know, critical thinking or speed, or, just be transparent. If the test is good, it's going to do a good job of measuring what it's supposed to do. There's no reason not to release the blueprint. We're doing a test now that is given every 4 years. And for the first time ever, we've released a blueprint. And the candidates are losing their mind. They're like, this is amazing. This is so awesome. And it's not going to help them pass the test. They either know it or they don't, but it will help reduce their anxiety. They know what to expect. They know how to study. Best practice, release the blueprint.
Excellent podcast. I really do recommend you check that out. I really enjoyed chatting with Amanda. If you want to watch or listen to that podcast, then go to testcommunity.network. You'll find all the resources there. Just a reminder as well, last week, there's also on the website, you can watch the interview I did with Dr. Mary Richardson. It's just a quick clip where I asked Mary about her opinions on whether or not we should be doing GCSE exams at all.
Well, my opinion is that no, I don't think we need GCSEs anymore. I think we could do a benchmarking test evaluation of some kind of a sample of the population at 16. We can check for numeracy, literacy, core subjects like that, and then sample from the other subjects on a regular cycle. That would give us enough of an understanding of progression, achievement, attainment, etc. And then we look at also reforming the A-level system. And actually focusing on that. I think GCSEs are a huge waste of energy, time, and money at the moment. But it's an industry, and that's my other point that I don't always make myself popular in. But it's fine. It's a big industry, so just the removal of it now is significant. So I think there are a whole range of political and other more pedagogical issues at play here.
So there's lots to unpack there. I really do recommend that you do check that out. And you go to the testcommunity.network website and look for the updates section on there. Upcoming events this week, we've got the Federation of Awarding Bodies. We've got a manifesto meeting. There's the Certiverse webinar coming up. So if you're interested in Certiverse and all the work they do, then check that out. Cambridge Assessment have got a webinar as well. That's about grading standard. And GL Assessment as well. I've got a webinar coming up as well. I'll leave these in-person events up as we go through this interview with Stuart, but here's me talking to Stuart Martin about micro-credentials. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, so we first spoke, I think it must have been about a year or so ago, because we were talking about New Zealand, and because you've got a lot of experience there, and we talk about micro-credentials, etc. Just for the audience, really, just tell everyone a bit about yourself and what's your your journey been?
So I'm Stuart Martin. I'm the founder of George Angus Consulting, which is an education consultancy. I've been in the vocational education space for 9 years now. Started with awarding organisations in the UK in kind of assessment and qualification design and development, and then went to New Zealand in 2020, which is good timing.
Yeah, just maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. And then started working with New Zealand education organisations and got into the area of micro and digital credentials, and then worked in New Zealand until the end of last year. And then I set up this consultancy that I'm doing now, and that's kind of pivoted me part of the time in the Northern Hemisphere, part of the time in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's exciting, but yeah,
it's a good place to be, because there's two very, would you say they're quite different in terms of the way that they work? So New Zealand, in terms of their education system, and the UK education system, it's similar or different?
Similar, but I think because New Zealand's only a country of 5 million, they probably have a bit more scope to be a bit more innovative with their approach and try and test different things, which is where, so they had micro-credentials in their qualification system since 2018. So it's that type of thing of, they can be maybe a bit more conservative than the UK sometimes, but then they also have these opportunities where they can be a bit more imaginative because it's a small population.
Yeah, it's interesting because people always kind of say, "Oh, well, New Zealand have been doing this, and why don't we do this? Why don't Finland have been doing X, Y, and Z? Why don't we do here in England? Why don't we do that?" Different, isn't it? Different, very different cultures, different structures, different setup, different opportunities, isn't it? Really. So in terms of micro credentials, then they've been talked about for a long time. It was a bit like proctoring before the pandemic. Kind of some people tried it and did it, and then suddenly, boom, we're in a situation where we need it. Do we find now that with micro-credentialing and badging that kind of these kind of technologies and platforms and solutions and cultures are all now converging to the point where it's boom time for micro-credentials, or is it still quite a kind of slow process?
I'd say it's boom time for digital credentials. So just to briefly say, because I think everybody has a different understanding.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, please do. Good.
I'd say a micro-credential is a short piece of learning which is focused on skill sets which industry need at that moment in time. A micro-credential which exists today shouldn't exist in probably 5 years' time because skill sets change, and it's meant to be around learning which doesn't exist in a qualification because they're not as agile. It's short, sweet bursts of learning. Whereas a digital credential is more of a digital badge, which is a way of showcasing skill sets. So you could get a digital badge for earning a piece of learning from a micro-credential, but likewise, you could digitally badge volunteering. The Boy Scouts are starting digital badging, and then there's like universities in Poland and other countries which are also embracing badging. So they're two different things, but they can be connected as well.
Yeah, and I think, and I must admit, I tend to I do group the two together because I see them as being these kind of bite-sized related ideas, aren't they? But it's interesting what you're saying about the fact that a micro-credential could, in theory, not exist in 5 years' time. That is something I've never really kind of considered. I understand it's an immediate learning, but you'd imagine that with some things, they're going to stick around for a bit longer. They're going to remain around. But so give me an example of something. Do you think, things like generative AI and prompt engineering, would you say that was a kind of micro-credential territory piece?
I'd say so. And I think especially anything in data, I think there's a good opportunity because a lot of like data organizations, they say to their prospective employees that they don't want them to come with a qualification because by the time they come, it's probably going to be 5-7 years out of date. Whereas if they come, they can be trained, and you could create bite-sized micro-credentials to create 10 hours worth of learning with an assessment at the end. Doesn't take you anywhere near as long as developing a qualification does. So you could create these bite-sized pieces of learning and keep the information relevant and then update it as and when skill sets change. In New Zealand, for instance, during the pandemic, they didn't have enough people able to give the COVID vaccine. So instead of creating a whole new qualification or adapting a qualification, they created a micro-credential focused on helping healthcare workers be able to learn how to kind of give the COVID vaccine. I don't think that exists now, but it was needed for a period of time. The skill set wasn't there. It was created in a couple of months. It went out. it did its job. And I think that's where there's the opportunity. I think in New Zealand, for instance, micro-credentials are reviewed every 1 to 3 years for currency. There will be, it might still exist in 10 years' time, but there'll probably be very big differences in either the delivery, the skill sets, assessments, as things kind of change.
Okay. And so I suppose with things like AI coming on, because I always like to kind of have a little bit of a chat about AI. Are you enjoying the AI kind of surge at the moment, or is that?
I think there's good opportunities. I've seen some of the digital badging providers being able to use kind of AI to help come up with kind of the skill sets which might be used within it. And I think there's some good opportunities I think it's a tool, right? It's not the savior of mankind, but I think could be, when used properly, a useful tool to help in these types of areas.
What about in terms of the generation of the content for micro-credentials? Because we had Dr. Richard Nelson from University of Bradford on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about a course where they were developing a course, like a module of the course, which was going to be relevant to a pertinent time then. So it wasn't necessarily a course that was created and then ran for 10 years. It was, okay, what's happening now? Gaza, war in Ukraine, or something along those lines, which is there and now. It was able to generate the course. Do you think AI can help kind of speed up the development of these micro-credential courses? Be right back with more information as to what Stuart thought about that. Just a quick update, though, in terms of the features that are coming into the Test Community Network. So this amazing platform that's available to you, all for free as a member. I've added a new feature in, which is A to Z listings for the marketplace. These are just the companies that are available in the marketplace globally that are supporting either providing technology or services to the assessment world. So if you run or operate or belong to those companies, then make sure you get your profile up to date. If you're interested in looking for a platform or technology, then make sure you do check that out and see what's available. Back to Stuart and the answer to that AI question. Dr. Richard Nelson from University of Bradford on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about a course where they were developing a course, like a module of the course, which was going to be relevant to a pertinent time then. So it wasn't necessarily a course that was created and then ran for 10 years. It was, okay, what's happening now? Gaza, war in Ukraine, or something along those lines, which is there and now. It was able to generate the course. Do you think AI can help kind of speed up the development of these micro-credential courses?
I think if it's trained correctly, yes. As long as the information that the AI has is up to date and relevant, and there's a quality assurance process the other side after that AI's developed it, then I think there's definitely opportunities to make it quicker. I think it's always easier to review once something's on the page. So if AI can do that initial burst and then it's reviewed and QA'd by humans, then I think there's probably a good opportunity there to help speed up the process.
Okay. And when you kind of consult and advise and help people in this kind of area, what's the first question that people kind of ask you when they approach you about micro-credentials? What kind of things do they talk to you about, or what are they seeking to know?
I think what it means is probably the first thing, because it is so different. I think understanding where it can fit in. So in the UK at the moment, there is no micro-credentials aren't regulated. There is no definition from any of the nations within the UK on it. When I've spoken to people in government about it, it's definitely not on people's agenda at the moment. Other areas of the world are embracing it, but I think at the moment in the UK, there's only the universities that are doing work in it. So some of them are doing some quite innovative development. Others are kind of taking existing courses, chopping up into smaller pieces and selling it to kind of add more money because of kind of falling numbers. But I think there's an opportunity in the vocational space to take what it's doing, because there's a lot of vocational skill sets which do change rapidly over time. But at the moment there is no regulation. So it's about where's the value piece of a micro-credential? How can we get employers, industry, AOs or whoever else to see the value in that and be willing to kind of embrace it?
And what's the first thing you kind of look for or ask or investigate when someone asks you to come in and say, look, we're interested in micro-credentials. We get it, or we've listened to you on the podcast or the broadcast with Tim. We now understand it. Where would you start with them in terms of helping them on that journey? What's the first things you would do?
Probably a market analysis and reviewing where the gaps are. So where are the core areas that they're looking to kind of expand in, or where they currently have a good relationship with industry, and making it a partnership between that organization and industry, or if it's industry coming to me, making sure that they are representative, to make sure that what they are wanting can be done at scale, and that there is that reputation behind it. So I think that because it's unregulated, there needs to be that, not necessarily ideally a third party quality assurance piece behind these credentials to showcase that it's not just Joe Bloggs creating this piece of learning, but there's another organization behind it who is saying, I believe in this, I trust this, I want this to be here, I see the value in it, and kind of forming those relationships.
Excellent. And so when you're not consulting and when you're not traveling from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, I get the impression from our chat before, you're not necessarily following the sun as most people would do if they're traveling from north to south. But so you're probably living in the greyness for quite some time at that time. If you do get an opportunity to travel and go and talk about these things, are you going to any events or conferences coming up soon?
Yep. So in August, I'm going to Boulder, Colorado, to talk at the badging conference on the value of credentials. So published some research last year on the value of micro and digital credentials, and I'm currently doing some more research into that space. So I'm presenting there. And then last year, I think I did about 5 conferences in a month, talking in like Slovakia and Milan and Berlin around kind of the value of credentials. So yeah, at least this one in Boulder will at least be in summer. So I'm quite looking forward to having a summer for the first time in a few years.
a bit of sun. Well, I hope it doesn't rain like it did when I was in LA earlier this year, which was very disappointing. So you go from being in a kind of air-conditioned box to outside into a storm. It doesn't make for a good experience, does it really? People say I'm off to LA. Oh wow! It's like, no, not really. It's a conference, and yeah. Well, I hope you have a really safe time and kind of safe travels on those events. Would we be able to share the research in as part of the marketplace? Do you think would that be okay?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll put out.
I'll add that into the marketplace so people can find that. Well, good luck. Thank you very much for kind of setting my mind a little bit more straighter on the idea of micro credentials and how they work. And love to hear more about your experiences and your further research later on. So hopefully we'll get you back later on in the year when it's maybe a bit sunnier for you wherever you are.
That'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Stuart, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So thank you for that, Stuart. That was excellent. Really, really enjoyed that conversation, and obviously educated me a lot more about the idea of micro-credentials and how they're connected with other parts of the assessment system, really. I'm going to leave you now with I'll leave you with a clip of the badging summit that Stuart mentioned. I'll be back next week with more of an update. But until then, you stay safe and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.